I honestly couldn't believe it when I first read the headline. While we're left and right arguing about ads with dead presidents over whether tariffs are a good strategy, hint, they're not, the research says so. American grocers are hiking prices again because of this new tariff war, but guess who? Donald Trump is still pushing ahead with a golden ballroom. Not a peace summit, not relief, a ballroom. You know what I did last night? I watched the Bank of Canada governor do his press conference, felt super sad about it. Then I watched the Fed press conference with their chairman, and I felt even worse. I'll discuss why during this weekend, maybe tomorrow, but yeah, we need to talk about this a lot because it upset me so much. I actually dreamed about it last night. Today, though, I want to show you exactly what got torn down to make room for all of these trade shenanigans and the economy tanking. We'll walk through the explosive meeting that kicked it all off and how Trump managed to make an entire wing of the White House disappear without public debate, without any oversight, without any shame. Because this isn't just about architecture, my friends. It's about legacy and power and how a man obsessed with monuments sees democracy not as something to be served, but as something to be shaped in his image. Never mind the 42 million people on food stamps that are going to stop having food this weekend. But hey, they actually expire on November 1st. The government is still shut down. Before we get into all of this, though, if I could quickly ask you to like this video, and if you enjoy the content, to subscribe, as it would really help with growing this channel even further and enriching our debate. Now, have you noticed how ambitions always creep? What begins as a modest upgrade soon becomes something monstrous. In July 2025, just recently, the White House announced a new ballroom. Maybe you've heard of this before. Supposedly just an add-on, but now by October, the East Wing is just gone. They keep calling it the Trump Ballroom, but maybe they should just call it the Jeffrey Ballroom. The press release claimed this won't interfere with the current building and would pay total respects to the existing building, yet actual photos tell a different story. Demolition crews, exposed structure, entire wing down. That mismatch of promise versus praxis signals more than a construction error. It signals intent, and we have all seen it before, definitely on the border with Canada as well. Let me just pause here because this part really got to me. In most democracies, places that still believe in public trust, by the way, any major change to a national landmark would be a slow public process, months of review, experts weighing in, cultural historians, architects, even ordinary citizens having a say. It's not about democracy here, but it's about respect. Respect for what's been built, for what it means, and for whom it belongs to. But not here, not now. What we're getting instead is the opposite, a process hidden behind fences, fast-tracked with no explanation, and executed before anyone could object. Bulldozers moved in before the press office even admitted that it was happening. Does that remind you of anyone? Like, come on, this president is just on a roll. And what got wiped away wasn't just drywall, but the East Wing that was built in 1902, expanded during the World War II, was where the First Lady's staff actually worked, where visitors came to start their White House tours, where ceremonies quietly marked the nation's continuity. It was one of the first parts of the building that felt lived in by the people. And now it's gone. And look, I've heard the official line that we just need more space. But if that were all it was, that would have been transparency, right? A plan, a hearing, a compromise. But that's not what this was. This wasn't renovation. This is erasure. A bulldozed legacy replaced by one man's monument to himself. Because when you look closer, the pattern becomes a little bit clearer. This is not about making the White House more functional. It's about making it his. And we discussed previously in another video how he is dead set on just making sure that these midterm elections go in a specific direction. Check that one out next if you're interested. A ballroom big enough to carry his name, a structure that outshines everything around it, legacy building disguised as construction, real estate logic applied to a national treasure. And all of it is happening while people are struggling to buy groceries. This is the part that pains me the most. While Canadian and American families alike are bracing for another round of price hikes because of a trade war no one voted for, while small businesses on both sides of the border are trying to survive another quarter without knowing what rules they'll wake up to. Literally, food stamps ran out on November 1st this weekend, and all of this is happening. The contract is just super hard to stomach, my friends. The wrecking ball swings while the economy buckles. That's the real demolition, not just of a building, but of priorities, of humility, of the very idea that public office is supposed to serve the public. And hey, if you find this kind of analysis valuable, there are two ways to support this channel. I've got a book on critical thinking coming up this weekend. Very excited for that. The link is in the description. If you sign up, I'll send you a discount when it drops. And if books aren't your thing, but you still want to keep this kind of work going, there's a Ko-fi link down there too. Every bit helps. According to Michael Wolff, the moment came in a meeting where engineering teams presented two paths: patch what you have or knock the east wing and rebuild. The quicker, cheaper path was demolition. He says, but can we do the demolition at night? The idea of doing it at night so Washington would wake up and the east wing would have just evaporated is a developer's play. When you demolish in darkness, you eliminate debate, you preempt resistance, you render the decision irreversible. They can't just like rebuild the east wing in another day, right? And that's exactly the point. As Wolff highlights, that's a real estate developer trick. What you tear down, you cannot build back. In other words, power doesn't wait, it acts. It obliterates the architecture of dissent. It's worth reflecting also on the trade-off here, speed versus heritage. If you choose speed, you bypass deliberation. If you choose heritage, you must endure process. Trump chose speed. The luxury of process was treated as a liability of some sort. He dismissed and terminated the oversight board, the Commission of Fine Arts, which traditionally reviews changes in federal property. Behind closed doors, though, resistance was not tolerated, and this is where people actually got fired. This was not about preserving the people's house. It was about stamping the presidential mark unchallenged and irreversible. Let's now step back and ask, what does this mean in a broader sense? When the President of the United States ordered the silent demolition of a part of the White House, it isn't merely about brick and mortar here. It's about precedent. It's about what people will accept. First, legacy. Trump is around 80 years old. He knows time is short and he is acutely aware of what serves him. He spent 2 terms undoing the mark of his predecessors. And now he wants something that cannot be undone, which is a demolition. As Wolff notes, once the building is gone, the only path is the one you define, because this is not necessarily just policy anymore. It's more he's fishing for permanence. The second thing is institution-evasion. Structures like the East Wing are about continuity, first ladies, public tours, symbolic passage. Destroying that interrupts the story itself. It says, we don't need your traditions. The process is optional. The spectacle is mandatory. Compare that to how other democracies preserve their governmental architecture as a part of collective memory. Third, the public legitimacy question. Polls show more than half of Americans disapprove of the project. They also show that most of them disapprove by him as well. This is Republicans included as well. They're opposed, but does that even matter? Under conventional democratic norms, yes. Under the emerging logic, not necessarily. If the mark is made and the deed is done, the story is written. But there is a trade-off, control versus accountability. You may build faster, but you bypass consent. You may achieve legacy, but you erode legitimacy. You may act unilaterally, but you provoke fracture. Finally, what is a signal to those who watch power? It tells them you may build your monuments here, but you cannot hide them. And if you want permanence, you must act before democracy finds you. Now, here's what I want you to consider. When an institution built to serve the many is handed over to one, what does that reveal about weakness, strength, or something else? The answer is neither simple nor comforting. It reveals an emergent logic of rule by monument rather than by consent. At its core, this demolition was not about a ballroom. It was about making visible the invisible. A power unchecked, a narrative written unopposed, a building rewritten about witness. The forceful removal of the East Wing shows that daily rituals of governance, First Lady offices, public tours, architectural continuity, can be swept aside when legacy becomes the priority. And so yes, it reflects strength in the sense of boldness or decisiveness, but it also reflects an institutional fragility, the belief that process can be bypassed, review rendered optional, the people's house made the one's house. So what remains when the East Wing is rubble? A void. And into that void steps the trumpet of legacy, the flash of gold, the ballroom larger than the building it replaced. Because once the structure is gone, there is less to contest, less to preserve, less to inherit. If you want to explore more videos like this, including all of the straight tension between Canada and the US, please check out the channel. There's plenty of that there. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.